Ladies and gentlemen, we're only 48 hours away from the Black Friday matchup with your number 16 per the CFP Florida State Seminoles and taking on the University of Florida Gators. And you know what? Who better to bring on this week for our Know Your Football segment than one of ours? We're very thankful. Thanksgiving week, you have to keep that vibe going for Mr. Brandon Olsen from Locked On Gators coming on to today's show and talking all things Florida on today's edition of Locked On Seminoles. Let's ride.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Seminoles. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drake here, and unfortunately, while Dave can't be here, we have Mr. Brandon Olsen from Locked On Gators. Brandon, what's going on, my guy? It's finally great to meet you in person for one of the biggest rivalries in all sports.
Yeah, I'm excited. I am cautiously excited about the game. I'll say that.
Okay, that's a good way to put it in, folks. As always, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs right now is helping you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster than ever before. Post your job for the free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. And as always, terms and conditions do apply. Brandon, Florida. Let's start, basically, I want to go back to last year and kind of what you went through and also talking about Mr. Dopey Dan, or as you know, we call him here, Mr. Dan Mullen. He started off kind of hot, 10-3 year one, 11-2 in year two, wins in both the Peach Bowl and the Orange Bowl. Everything looks prime and dandy. 2020, 8-4, kind of a letdown with that blowout loss to Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. So then 5-6 last year. There's no better way to ask this, but what exactly was the reason behind the sort of downfall? Was it all just recruiting, or was there a little more, nuanced kind of take to this?
It was everything piling up. It was the recruiting question where it was like, hey, asking about recruiting is like, hey, we'll talk about recruiting and recruiting season, which I will say, in his defense, I do think that was wildly overblown. I think it's pretty clear that he was saying, like, we're in season, we're not going to talk about recruiting right now. But it came off really bad for a guy who was already given the reputation of he's not a good loser. I mean, he is a loser, but he's not a good loser. He doesn't have a great reputation with media. He doesn't know how to handle negativity often. And it was a season where, your team's not performing on the field. You and your staff are not performing off the field as far as recruiting goes, and people were a bit frustrated with him, and it was the recruiting question, it was the on-field product. Again, I know that the locker room was pretty pissed with him. I was told before 2021 that the players for the most part wanted Anthony Richardson starting. They wanted Anthony Richardson. They thought he gave them the best chance to win. The coaches, Dan Mullen specifically, committed to Emory Jones, and ultimately cost him his job.
Okay, it actually kind of goes to where I have a few friends of mine that actually were around the program actually for the last season before heading off because Dan Mullen was no longer there, and kind of hear the same things where I know Dan Mullen's very, very, he likes to reward seniority of people that have been there for a very long time, but when you have someone as talented as Anthony Richardson, and we'll talk about him more a little bit later in today's show, that does show the divide, especially when we see Emory Jones struggling the way he did last season.
Yeah, it was rough, and look, I get having a sentimental connection for Dan Mullen to Emory Jones because Emory was initially committed to, I believe it was Ohio State, and then Dan Mullen took the Florida job, and Emory Jones texted him, and he was like, I want to be your QB, coach. So I understand feeling that kind of sentiment if you're Dan Mullen, but there comes a certain point where you have to play the quarterback that gives you a better chance to win. I don't even want to say better because, we've seen how inconsistent Anthony Richardson has been this year. Last year, he would have been even worse. Last year, he was worse in limited time, which Gators fans, I know, I'm so sorry. I know you were mad at me last year when I said it. I'm saying it again now. He was wildly inconsistent, and he kind of proved that consistently. And yeah, it just was a complete divide, and a not even just divide, a disconnect from what players thought and what coaches thought.
So then now let's look, go away from looking at the past. We're not Miami fans here. Let's look towards the present right now, this current season. What was Florida's actually expectations for this year, and also for, Dave actually just texted me the question he wanted to ask you. Unfortunately, can't be here. Do you feel that this team overall is coordinated and better coached under Billy Napier?
Exponentially. Yeah, I think that this team is just so much better put together where outside of the Vanderbilt game, this was a team where week after week looked like it was improving. Sorry, outside of the Vanderbilt and Utah game, you started off at your peak and then you kind of fell back to earth here where people thought, realistic Gators fans saw this as a 6 to 8 win season. Right now, you've got the 6 wins, you're bowl eligible, and Billy Napier even said earlier on, he was like, the importance of getting bowl eligible is not about the bowl game. It's about getting those 15 extra practices. So you got that. And yeah, this is a team where they consistently showed improvement. There were not nearly as many penalty issues as there were last year under Dan Mullen. And a lot of the guys that did commit penalties still were Dan Mullen guys or are Dan Mullen guys. But this is a team that I feel like you can't look at this program and say it's worse than it was last year, regardless of talent or anything, just coaching wise, this is easily a better team. They made adjustments early on in the season. The cover 3 heavy was not working out too much. They switched to more man, more quarters coverage, and it really helped this team improve. So I think that you got to look at this team and say they've shown consistent improvement. They've shown a willingness to adjust and a willingness to learn from their mistakes. And you have to give them credit for that and just say, that's a positive at the very least.
Okay, then I want to ask you this because I already have a few. I got some family friends of mine and family as well that actually did go to Florida. They weren't super high on the Billy Napier hire. Before we go over to X's and O's offensive, defensively, this Gators team, I want to ask you your opinion when the hire happened. Was this someone that you actually basically can get behind on when actually took the job, or were you kind of big game hunting for, say, maybe a Brian Kelly or maybe even poaching someone else actually that was actually over in the coaching pool?
No, I will say Billy Napier was not high on the list for me of people that I wanted to bring over. I'll say this too. When Dan Mullen got fired, I was excited because I was like, I am going to have weeks of episodes where I just get to talk about all these guys. And I had it planned out for like 3 weeks. And then they hired Billy Napier like a week and a half after they got rid of Dan Mullen. And I was like, oh, thanks for screwing that up. But no, Billy Napier is someone that I do like primarily because he's very detail-oriented and process-oriented. And I'm the same way where I'm like, if the result isn't exactly what you were hoping for, I'm okay with it as long as you think the process was the right way to get there. And I'm okay with that. Someone who's putting an extra emphasis on recruiting. He showed up and he was very honest too. He was just like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done here. He was like, this is going to be not a 1-year thing. This is going to take a while to build this program back up to the Gator standard that they have developed and that they want to hold this team up to, where realistically, most of the past decade, they haven't lived up to that.
Well, hopefully the Gator standard, is helped up by basically the 950,000 people that Billy Napier actually hired to go around the program. And we know that he was their title sponsor over at LinkedIn Talent Solutions, aka LinkedIn Jobs, because folks, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes widget for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps to find the right people for your team faster and, most importantly, for free. Brandon, you ever use LinkedIn Jobs, by the way, to find someone or find a new job out there?
All the time, every time.
Hey, listen to Brandon. Use it all the time, every time, and best, and most importantly, it's for the free. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster than ever before. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free, and for the free. And as always, terms and conditions do apply. All right, we're back here with Brandon right now. And now we're going over to the X's and O's, the more fun part of the show. And one thing I got to ask you, Anthony Richardson, you were one of the few people on the UF beat that was very, I don't want to say hard on him because I think it comes from a constructive criticism standpoint, even though there are some times where you're like saying, what was it you said that he could not hit the bright side of a barn? I think you said in one of your shows.
I said he couldn't hit the side of a barn if he was throwing the side of a barn.
So that's pretty up. So over the course of the year, it feels like there's a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing with Anthony Richardson. And it also feels like it seems that his home stats and away stats, the splits, are just completely different. Is there something that you're seeing in his game that shows his limitations, or is it something that basically Florida State, the defense overall, needs to look out for coming this matchup on Friday?
I feel like it's a combination of him getting in his own head and him just being a generally inconsistent quarterback where I've said this since last year. Like, look, Anthony Richardson, physically, one of the most impressive human beings on the planet. People his size don't move the way he moves. And if they do, they're usually playing D-end or tight end. They're not playing quarterback because they can't throw the way he does. But he's openly said that he gets in his own head at home. He's like, there's 90,000 Gators fans there expecting me to be great. It gets in my head, which terrifies me, by the way. That is the scariest thing your quarterback can ever say, where he's like, yeah, I don't like playing at the place I'm supposed to be better at.
Did you hear what Tyler Dyso said about Miami? He says he looks forward to away games because it feels like more of a home atmosphere.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. But Anthony Richardson is just like, hey, I love being hated, which I mean, I feel like there's plenty of Gators fans that have booed him, but he's better on the road for some reason. You know, we're not going to say he was good at Vanderbilt on the road. That was just one of the worst showings I've ever seen. But Tennessee, he played one of the better games, and it was on the road in a packed Neyland Stadium. Like it was insane to see, but that terrifies me. And he's just a naturally inconsistent quarterback that gets in his own head, and it shows too. The Vanderbilt game infuriated me because for weeks he looked more confident than we've ever seen him. And then the Vanderbilt game, Dejon Reynolds, number 8 wide receiver, you'll see him, Knowles fans, he dropped a touchdown pass on second down. Anthony Richardson turns around, crouches, and is holding his hands between his legs, and he's looking straight down. You can't do that, at least from my perspective. You can't do that if you're the starting quarterback. You have to be the leader. You can't just turn around and crouch and slouch. And, fourth down, the same guy caught the touchdown pass. But it was just the body language at certain times is just horrible.
So you think it's primarily a mental thing is what you're telling me right now?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. So then overall, we know that Anthony Richardson is probably one of the more talented kids out there. That was someone in high school I saw when Dan Mullen landed, and I'm like, that's kid's going to be a problem because you're saying the size, the talent, it's all there. He just needs to be able to put it together. And quite frankly, if Dan Mullen wasn't able to bring it out of him, it's going to be hard to find someone that actually could. So then now let's look over to the other weapons on the offense. Dameon Pierce, who I think FSU fans do remember the great touchdown run he had last year where he basically lost his helmet, still scored. Really great play. Hate it had to be us, but it still was a very, very damn good play. But now you bring in Travis Etienne's, younger brother, Trevor Etienne, and also I think Ventrell Johnson, the University of Louisiana Lafayette transfer, that actually Billy Napier did one of the smarter things that I thought he could do was bring over people that were already in the system coming in now. So can you tell us more about those options and also your wide receiver options? Because from my understanding, your wide receiver options is mainly Juwan Johnson, like you were saying, Ricky Pearsall, and I forgot the kid's name, Justin Shorter.
Yeah. So Justin Shorter is going to be Ricky Pearsall, as far as we know, obviously. Holiday, we're recording this before Wednesday night, which I know Florida State already put their depth chart out. Florida puts theirs out Wednesday night. So at the time of recording this, we don't know if Ricky Pearsall is going to be playing. So we'll see. But if Ricky Pearsall is playing, he's the most talented receiver in this room. I get it. I love Justin Shorter, Gators fans. You love Xavier Henderson, who is also up in the air. But Ricky Pearsall is the best receiver on that team. Dejon Reynolds is bright. Marcus Burke is very fast. But at running back, you got your Thunder and Lightning and Ventrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. They're two of the more explosive running backs in the nation. And I love seeing that. Ventrell Johnson just has a physical style. Like he's the type where he's obviously not as Dameon Pierce-esque, but he is the type where it's like, well, I'm just going to run into you until you are scared of making contact there, which I don't know if anybody's played football. I had a dude like that where I was like, I don't want to get hit by him anymore. So that happens. But yeah, Ventrell Johnson's that thunder to Trevor Etienne's lightning, and you're going to see Ventrell Johnson probably get somewhere in the 15 to 20 carry range, I think, on Friday. Okay,
and then before we talk over the defense side of the ball after the ad break, tell me about Osiris Torrance, because basically I think the big matchup for this game is going to be Fabian Lovett, defensive tackle Robert Cooper, Florida State, and then Osiris Torrance in the interior, who I think a lot of people are projecting him as a potential high second, even breaking his way into the first round. So tell me a little bit about the Gators offensive line.
Yeah, Osiris Torrance is a monster. There is no other way to put that one. Yeah, he is a freak. He was obviously with Billy Napier at Louisiana, and like you mentioned, what Billy Napier did, which was very smart, was he brought over a couple of the top players that were in the system. They know what they're doing. That's Osiris Torrance. He's played 4 years without allowing a sack. It's incredible. He is one of the bigger maulers in the ground game, and I am going to miss him so much, but he's going to be in the NFL, and he will be, a high second or late first, which I don't know if you're a draft fan out there, but for a guard, that's pretty dang good. But yeah, Osiris Torrance is a freak. We got 3 tackles that play relatively consistently in Richard Garage, Michael Tarquin, and Austin Barber. Personally, Austin Barber is my favorite one at right tackle. Kingsley Aguakin at center. Ton of penalties, and that is going to be killer. Over the past 2 seasons, he is the most penalized offensive lineman in Power 5 football.
So Jared versus where you tell me might have actually a field day along your offensive line.
Yeah, which really sucks also because I really wanted Jared Verse to come to Gainesville, but no.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we have him and y'all don't. Thank God for that. But folks, before you actually go over to the game, let's talk about our friends over at BetOnline. Yes, BetOnline is another one of our title sponsors because BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to play on all your latest sports action. And Brandon, I always ask every guest coming on here when we have a BetOnline ad read, I need you to place a bet. You ready for that?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so since we are dropping this on Wednesday, hopefully, basically we'll do it quickly. Mississippi State, Mississippi, the Old Egg Bowl. We all know that basically Lane Kiffin, I think, basically has his resume over already on the Plains. I know Zach Blackerby, our Hefe over there, is very excited about that. Ole Miss is a 2.5-point favorite, actually at home. Over-under right now is set at 59. Brandon, what are you taking in this game?
I'm going to take, I don't know what the money line is. I'm taking Mississippi State money line. Whatever.
Plus 103?
Yeah, I'm taking the Mississippi State money line. I feel like the Ole Miss players are probably going to be pretty pissed with Lane Kiffin, and there might be a little bit of tension there, which is my point where I think he's gone. I know other people think that he's not gone because there's conflicting reports. I think he's gone. I think his bags are packed and all that. So, I'm taking Mississippi State money line, and I'm taking the over because I feel like they're going to have a lot of fun there.
AKA, there will be no defense played on Thanksgiving, so just sit back, relax, enjoy some rest of Thanksgiving meals, and always take all your bets, all your action over to BetOnline because, folks, BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, Brandon, we're towards the end of the show, but let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. Before I want to go into the bigger thing, I do know Ventrell Miller. Did I pronounce his name?
Yep.
He had the targeting call actually against Vanderbilt. Do we know if that it's been appealed yet, or do we know that's still actually taking in place? Will he miss the first half against Florida State?
I don't believe Florida is even appealing it. I think they watched. I personally, I think it was an acceptable targeting call. I don't necessarily be like, oh, that was egregious, but I think it was just one of those situations where his head's ducking, the ball carrier's head's ducking, and they collided. So by rule, it's targeting. I'm more on the side that targeting being an ejection and suspension is stupid.
Yeah, I think targeting should be, in my personal opinion, it should be a warning, 15 yards. You get 2. It's kind of like a yellow card in soccer, red card for all your World Cup fans out there. Also, the same thing in hockey with a misconduct. But hey, listen, we're not the NCAA, and also ACC and SEC officials typically have more job security than most people. I will never understand it. But defensively, Florida has been something that has left a lot to be desired overall. I can see all of my mentions, all of my timeline too, that defensively has taken a leap from, I guess, what's the coordinator's name from last year? His name is escaping me. Grantham?
From last year, it was Todd Grantham.
Yeah, and I know now the current defensive coordinator is Patrick Toney. Has the defense actually taken enough of a leap, or is that still kind of you ironing out the kinks? I do know you lost Brenton Cox to the portal. I know Dion Black actually was he was dismissed. So overall, like defensively, what is up with this Florida defense?
It's been really fun to watch. Where for the first half of the season, statistically, Florida had one of the worst third down defenses in the country. Played a lot of cover 3, and it wasn't really working. They started shifting to cover 1, cover 0, quarters. They started just doing a whole bunch of different stuff, and it's like, oh my God, when you switch it up, things work more. So I think that things have changed. Amari Burney, who's like 35, he's stepped up a ton recently. And I mean, throughout the whole season, he's played the best ball of his career, but he's stepped up a ton. It's been a gradual improvement, and finally looked like it was kicking up with 6 straight scoreless quarters against the second half of Texas A&M, the entire game of South Carolina, where their only score was a fake punt, which is still, I hate Shane Beamer for that. But I mean, this is a defense where it's been up and down. They're still trying to figure things out now this late in the season, but I'll say I'm optimistic with them.
Okay. Now, folks, I correct myself. For Brendan Cox actually forgot. He actually was dismissed from the team. He will be actually heading into the NFL draft. So sorry about that, folks. So then defensively, what is a player that we don't hear much about, actually probably in the national landscape, that FSU fans will probably be acquainted with coming this Friday?
Oh,
No, Gervon Dexter. Everyone knows Gervon Dexter.
Oh,
That
yeah,
kid-
no. You're not getting Dex. You're not getting Jason Marshall. You're getting Princely Umanmielen. That man, right on the edge. He is going to be. He's picked it up a ton this season. Like last season, he wasn't playing a ton, but while he was playing, he was being very productive on a per snap basis. This year, he came alive. Like he has just become a freak, especially since Brenton Cox Jr. got dismissed for. Brenton Cox Jr. got dismissed. Princely Umanmielen took his spot and just became a monster. He started talking trash on social media. He's a different man now, and it's awesome to see because he's really just stepped up and thrived. And I have a friend that works with the NFL draft, and he's like, "Hey, like, is Princely coming to the draft? Because he's the best player on that defense." I don't know the answer for you. I'm not on that staff, but Princely Umanmielen is someone that you're never going to be able to pronounce his name, but you're going to wish you could because you're going to be hearing it a lot.
I'm about to say, because I'm glad you said that, because I have him right here as a number one player to look out for. As well, my fellow tribunal thickness member, Mr. Desmond Watson. That kid actually probably he has a very relentless motor. That's a really fun kid to watch. So, last question before we do predictions: Jordan Travis. You've seen the kid. I saw a tweet that you have from the game last year that you basically we're not worried, but he's someone to look out for heading into this season. You've seen the progression he's been from a pocket passer. Hasn't used his legs as much as a lot of FSU fans would think of. How is this Florida defense going to be able to, I guess, combat him? And also, what does Mike Norvell and Alex Atkins need to scheme up to take advantage of this Florida defense?
Yeah, I will say I do like Jordan Travis. As much as I hate admitting it, I do like Jordan Travis. I even know the tweet that you're referring to last year is me saying, like, I think I said that we could be talking about him in the Heisman conversation if he just takes a couple more steps. Because I do think he's a very talented quarterback, which I hate admitting again. But yeah, he's great. I think that Florida's done a good job of keeping quarterbacks in the pocket for the most part this season. So it's good that he's developed specifically as a passer this season. Because, this season Florida's been great defensively at keeping guys in the pocket, which is something that we're not used to. But Jordan Travis has taken strides. Receivers have stepped up. I think it's going to be about attacking the middle of the field, which has been Florida's weakness for most of the season. Tight ends have feasted. Slot receivers have had quite a bit of fun there. And I think that's going to be the same thing. I think every game you look at with Florida, you just go, get it to your tight ends, get it to your slot receivers, get it to your running backs over the middle, and you're going to have easy conversions.
So what you're telling me is that we just need to put Micah Pittman and Johnny Wilson in the slot, so basically just go over the middle all day.
Yeah, pretty much. Just go big slot.
Okay. I love me some big slots. But, Brandon, it's always great to have you on here. Please give us your prediction for this game. I know you're probably going to pick Florida to win because basically you're on here. You're the villain. We love to hear it all. So please, what does Florida need to do to win this game, and what do you have the final score being?
I think Florida just has to force a couple of turnovers, which they've been great at. They forced turnovers in, if I'm not mistaken, every game this season. So they've been great at that. I think that you got to keep that going. I will say Anthony Richardson on the road is always is always the better Anthony Richardson that you're going to get. I think I was going to give you Florida State, but you know what? I'll say I think Florida wins this game 28-24. I think it'll be close no matter what, but I'll have to go with the homer this. I can't fully say the other way around, so I'll say Florida 28-24.
And folks, we will be having the walkthrough this week, but I'll tell you right now, since Brandon is here, I have Florida State probably 45. Anthony Richardson probably one touchdown for himself, so maybe 45 to probably 13, because that's going to be you're going to probably see a lot more of what's John Kitna's son probably playing a little more in this game. I don't know if Jack Miller is healthy. You might see him too, because it's going to be an interesting game. But Brandon, thank you so much for coming on. Please let the folks know, 1, where they can follow you, 2, subscribe to your work, and 3, what's your favorite Thanksgiving dinner meal or portion of the meal, whether it be the entree, whether it be the side. Let the folks know a little more about you.
I will say you can follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. You can find all my work every day with Locked On Gators, and written work is with Giants Country at SI.com if you're a New York Giants fan. And I've always been a big stuffing guy. I realize I think a lot of people hate on stuffing. I've always been a big stuffing guy. So I will say that is my favorite portion.
Well, as you can tell by my figure, and folks, if you see this on YouTube, I'm a big stuffing guy as well. But Thank you so much for the love and support. Make it Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every single day. And make Locked On Gators your second listen, because trust me, it is rival week. It is hate week, as always, Florida. And we'll see y'all next time on Locked On Seminoles. Take care, everybody.